When I finally boarded that first flight home after 3 years, I thought I was going back to family, to love, to safety. But instead my stepfather's "welcome back" turned into something I'll never forget. I wish I'd never stepped foot in that house again. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. The moment the plane wheels touched the ground, my heart started racing. After years away, I was finally home. As I stepped off the plane, the familiar smell of the airport hit me, a mix of dust, coffee, and people rushing around. Everything looked the same, yet somehow different. The city felt smaller, quieter, like time had moved but waited for me at the same time. Kept thinking about Mom. Her voice on the phone, soft and shaky when she said, "We can't wait to see you." I missed her cooking, the way the house always smelled like warm bread and spices when I came home from school. I missed her hugs, the kind that made everything feel okay again. In the cab, I stared out the window, watching familiar streets roll by. The corner shop where I used to buy snacks, the park where I'd sit for hours dreaming about leaving. Now I was coming back. A little older, maybe a little stronger. Mom had said something before I boarded the flight. Something that stayed in my mind the whole trip. She said, "Everyone's waiting for you. Even he is excited to see you." For a moment I didn't know how to respond. My stepfather. A part of me wanted to believe her. That maybe time had softened him, that maybe he'd changed. That maybe this time I'd walk through that door and feel like family again. So I smiled to myself, held on to that hope, and whispered, "Maybe this time, things will be different." When the cab stopped in front of our house, my heart felt heavy and light at the same time. The old gate was still rusty, the same crack ran down the front wall. Everything looked exactly how I remembered it. Mom opened the door before I could even knock. She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. It looked tired, forced. Still, I hugged her tightly, hoping it would erase the years I'd been gone. For a second I thought I felt her hold me back, but then she pulled away too quickly. And then I saw him. Leaning against the doorframe, a glass in his hand, that same look on his face. Half a grin, half a warning. "So, you finally remembered us?" he said. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I tried to laugh it off, tried to sound normal. "Yeah, it's been too long," I said quietly. But he didn't answer. He just turned and walked inside. The air felt thick, heavy, like the walls themselves remembered every argument, every silent dinner, every bruise. Mom motioned for me to come in. I noticed her hands trembling slightly as she closed the door behind me. Inside, the house smelled the same, but it didn't feel like home. My old photos were gone from the walls. The table was set, but no one spoke. The sound of his glass clinking against the plate was the only thing breaking the silence. Mom kept her eyes down, pushing food around her plate, pretending to eat. Every time he looked at me, I could feel the tension grow thicker. It was like sitting next to a storm that hadn't started yet, but you could already hear the thunder in the distance. That night I realized something. The welcome I'd been dreaming of never really existed. And deep down I knew, whatever peace I was hoping for wasn't waiting for me here. Sitting at that dinner table brought back memories I had tried so hard to bury. Every glance, every silence, it all felt too familiar. It was like stepping back into the past I thought I'd escaped. I remembered the nights when his shouting filled the whole house. The sound of a door slamming. The way Mom's voice would shake as she tried to calm him down. He never saw me as family. To him I was just a reminder of someone else. Someone he hated. I can still hear his voice in my head. "You think you're better than me? Just because your real dad left." Those words cut deeper than anything else he ever did. And Mom, she'd always try to fix it. She'd whisper, "He's just stressed, don't argue. Please, not tonight." So I stopped arguing. I learned to stay quiet, to keep my head down, to leave the room when he started drinking. But every time I did, a little part of me disappeared. That's why I left. Not for a dream, not for a better life, but just to breathe. I promised myself I'd never come back. Never walk through that door again. But there I was, sitting at the same table, hearing the same silence, feeling the same fear. And I couldn't stop asking myself, why did I come back at all? That night, everything felt tense from the start. Mom had made my favorite meal, trying to keep things normal, but the silence between us said everything. He was already on his second drink when I sat down. The clinking of his glass against the table made my stomach twist. For a while he just stared at me. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, "So, what did you bring?" I looked at him, confused. He smirked. "You make money now, huh?" Think you're some kind of hero. I tried to keep my voice calm. I just came home to see you both. That's all. But that only made him angrier. He slammed his glass down, spilling the drink across the table. You think you're better than me now? Walking in here like you own the place. Mom whispered his name, trying to stop him, but he didn't even look at her. He stood up, and before I could move, I heard the sound of something breaking. A plate hitting the floor, shattering near my feet. Then his voice, low, cruel. Welcome back, huh? The next thing I felt was his hand across my face. The room went quiet except for the ringing in my ears. It wasn't the slap that hurt the most. It was the reminder that I still wasn't enough. No matter what I did, I'd never be the son he wanted. Mom started crying, begging him to stop. Her voice was shaking, broken. Please. Please don't make it worse. But she didn't move. She just stood there, frozen like she always did. I sat there, my cheek burning, my heart heavy. In that moment I knew nothing had changed. All the years I'd spent away, and I was right back where I started, broken, small, and unwanted. The house was silent that night, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm. I sat on the edge of my bed, my face still aching, my hands shaking. I looked down and saw a faint line of blood on my sleeve. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to remind me what this place really was. The clock showed a little past midnight. Mom was asleep in the next room, or at least pretending to be. I could still hear her quiet sobs through the thin wall. For a long time I just sat there staring at my bag in the corner. Leaving once had been hard. But leaving again meant I had to accept the truth, that this house, this family was never really mine. I stood up slowly, every step feeling heavier than the last. I began packing my things. One shirt, a few pictures, my passport. No noise, no words, just the sound of the zipper closing. My hands trembled as I folded a small piece of paper and placed it on the table. I wrote, I love you, Mom. But I can't destroy myself to keep peace. It was the hardest sentence I've ever written. I wanted to tell her so much more. That I forgave her, that I understood her silence, that I wished things were different. But the words just wouldn't come. The same cracked window, the same faded curtains, the same air that always felt too heavy to breathe. I whispered a quiet goodbye and walked out. As the door closed behind me, I felt the night air hit my face. Cold, sharp, real. For a moment, I thought I heard his voice again in my head, that mocking tone. Welcome back, huh? But this time I didn't turn around. I kept walking. As I knew now. I was finally leaving for good. Months passed and life slowly began to quiet down. I was living alone in a small apartment, far from that house, far from the noise, far from the pain. The first few weeks were hard. Nights felt longer, mornings felt empty. But with time I started to breathe again. I found a job, nothing special, but it gave me purpose. Some days I'd walk to the nearby park and just sit there watching people laugh, parents playing with their kids. It used to make my chest ache. Now it just reminded me that peace still exists somewhere in this world. For the first time in years I wasn't walking on eggshells. No shouting. No fear. Just silence. The good kind. Then one afternoon my phone rang. It was a number I still knew by heart. I hesitated before picking up. Her voice cracked the moment I said hello. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't try to explain. She just said, he's gone. I left him. For a moment I couldn't speak. The world around me went still. I could hear her breathing, slow, tired, almost relieved. I closed my eyes and a single tear slipped down my face. All the anger, all the confusion, all the pain, it started to fade slowly. I whispered, I wish you had left sooner. There was silence on the other end, and then she said softly, I know. After the call, I sat there for a long time staring out the window. The sky was turning orange. The kind of sunset that feels like an ending and a beginning at the same time. Maybe we both needed to break to finally be free. Maybe that was the only way to start over. And even though I was miles away, I finally felt what I had been searching for all along. Peace. There's something I've learned through all of this. Something I never understood before. Home isn't always the place you grow up in. It's not the walls or the memories or the family name written on the mailbox. Home is where you feel safe. It's where you can breathe without fear, where your heart doesn't tighten every time someone raises their voice. For the longest time I thought staying was strength. I thought forgiving again and again meant love. But the truth is, sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. Because when the people who are supposed to protect you become the ones who hurt you the most, that's not family. That's a prison you don't owe your life to. It took me years to understand that leaving doesn't make you heartless. It doesn't mean you've given up on love. It just means you've finally chosen yourself. And that choice, that small trembling step out the door, is the beginning of healing. I used to believe that if I changed, if I tried harder, if I stayed quiet, maybe things would get better. But now I know it was never about me. Some people break others just to feel strong. And the only way to stop them is to stop letting them. Sometimes home isn't where you're born. It's where you're finally safe. If your family only knows how to hurt you, walk away. Because leaving isn't weakness, it's survival. When I boarded that first flight home, I carried hope in my heart. The hope of being loved, of being accepted. But when I boarded the next one, I carried something much stronger. Peace. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.